For years, Donald Trump utilized the presidency as a primary layer of legal protection. By citing executive immunity, he effectively built a vault door around his actions, intended to insulate him from the personal consequences of his conduct. That protection faced a direct challenge during the events of January 6th. As a mob breached the physical perimeter of the Capitol, the actions surrounding that day initiated a legal confrontation that the framework of executive privilege was not designed to resolve. District Judge Amit Mehta addressed that shield in a detailed 112-page ruling. He rejected the argument that a president's immunity remains absolute regardless of the context, officially allowing these civil lawsuits to move forward. The ruling establishes a specific boundary between the duties of a president and the actions of a candidate. The court determined that pressuring election officials to alter results is not an official presidential function, but rather the behavior of a candidate attempting to retain power. By removing the immunity defense, the court has moved this conflict out of the political arena and into a civil system where discovery requirements are far more difficult to evade through standard procedural delays. These lawsuits are being driven by individual citizens who are seeking direct accountability for the violence of that day. Among the plaintiffs are Capitol police officers seeking damages for severe physical injuries and the emotional trauma they sustained during the assault on the building. The litigation also includes a wrongful death claim filed on behalf of the family of Officer Brian Sicknick, who died after defending the Capitol in the middle of the crisis. Judge Mehta cited Trump's own public statements as evidence of a potential tacit agreement with groups on the ground. The ruling noted that Trump's calls to action and his reaction to the violence suggest he shared the same goals as extremist factions like the Proud Boys. Because these plaintiffs have documented physical injuries, the litigation moves past abstract political arguments and focuses on specific human harm, a reality that is far more difficult to dismiss as a mere witch hunt. In a civil case, the most powerful mechanism for extracting information is discovery. This legal process mandates the exchange of evidence, compelling defendants to produce data that might otherwise remain hidden. Discovery grants plaintiffs the authority to subpoena private communications, including internal records, emails, and text messages sent between aides. This targets the specific logistics of the day, from the coordination of fake electors to internal warnings received while the mob moved toward the Capitol. This phase leads directly to depositions. High-ranking figures in the inner circle must answer questions under oath, without the shield of presidential protection. Once discovery begins, the control of the narrative shifts. Political messaging loses its effectiveness when it is forced to compete with a steady flow of authenticated, documented evidence. While criminal court provides a defendant with broad protections against self-incrimination, civil court operates under a much more punishing set of standards. This involves the concept of adverse inference. While you can plead the fifth to stay silent, in a civil trial, that silence allows a jury to legally conclude that you are withholding damaging information, tipping the case against you. Trump is facing these rules in an environment where he has already seen significant failure. Historically, his legal strategies have struggled to overcome the specific requirements of the civil defense table. He has already faced massive judgments, including over $88 million in the Jean Carroll verdicts and a $350 million judgment for business fraud in New York. Civil courts have consistently proven willing to impose heavy financial costs. Unlike a criminal case, which can be dismissed by an incoming administration, a civil judgment creates a personal financial liability that is difficult to resolve through political maneuvers. A civil trial creates a physical reality that cannot be managed by social media statements. In a courtroom, the only things that hold weight are the facts presented on the record. The proceedings will force a former president to sit in a room while the family of a fallen officer describes the impact of their loss, bringing the abstract arguments of the case down to a human level. A jury will hear directly from injured officers about the permanent physical damage they sustained. These are first-hand accounts of suffering that are delivered in an environment where campaign rhetoric is considered irrelevant. This focus on documented injury makes it difficult to maintain a narrative of political persecution. When a jury of everyday citizens sees the physical results of the violence, the case becomes about accountability for harm rather than political ideology. In this setting, the titles of the past hold no value. The outcome depends entirely on the evidence of what was done and the truth of who was hurt. Civil litigation moves at a slow, methodical pace that is largely indifferent to election cycles. It creates a persistent legal pressure that continues regardless of the political calendar. Every document release and every deposition from this discovery process becomes part of the public record. It creates a continuous cycle of new information that pulls the events of January 6th back into the center of public attention. This path remains active even if other legal challenges are delayed. While an election victory can impact criminal proceedings, it has no direct mechanism to stop a private civil lawsuit from reaching a verdict. The long-term impact of this discovery process may ultimately provide a more complete account of that day than any other investigation, leaving a documented truth that outlasts the